Hey everybody, and Tony here. And in observation of AIDS Awareness Month, and since it's also the holidays, I'll be reviewing Rankin Bass's The Year Without a Santa Claus, which was shown earlier this morning on television in white TV. So without further ado, let's get on with the review. The directors and producers of this film were Jules Bass and Arthur Rankin Jr. It was written by William Keenan. It was based on the novel by the same name by Phyllis McGinley, and it stars Shirley Booth, Mickey Rooney, Dick Shawn, George S. Irving, and Rhoda Mann. Now, I've never really grew up with the Rankin Bass Christmas specials as a kid. The only things that I've ever watched, well, which were Christmas specials, were the ones on Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, and or Disney Channel, and some other networks as well, but never like any Rankin Bass Christmas specials when I was a kid. So yeah, until I saw some reviewers talking about them, like Huey Toonmar, the Hardcore Kid, the Cartoon Hero, and many others that I really enjoy watching their videos. And then when I managed to stumble upon their reviews of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Year Without a Santa Claus, and many other Rankin Bass Christmas specials, I thought to myself, maybe I could give some of these movies a try. So, how did The Year Without a Santa Claus fare with me? Now, story-wise, it's actually really interesting because, well, when you think any Christmas special, a lot of them seem to talk about the ever-fabled Santa Claus, or St. Nicholas, or St. Nick, whoever you like to call him, or Father Christmas, as he's called in the olden times. So it's actually quite interesting that we get to see what happens if Mrs. Claus takes over his job if ever Santa Claus gets sick or if something bad has happened to him. And, well, it's actually really interesting, and I really liked how this film has this type of charm, color, and vibrance. There are no moments where it felt dull. There are no moments where I just want to turn off the TV, whatever. It just kept my interest hooked. And there are definitely some genuine, touching, and some funny moments throughout this film, which really helped it and really made me stick on throughout the duration of the entire movie. Now, since this film was made in the 70s, the animation, well, since it's stop motion, is quite dated by today's standards, and I mean really dated. The movements for the characters are very static, and the expressions that they have are extremely limited. And the lip syncing at times is pretty good for the time, but there are moments in which the lip syncing wasn't really that great. Well, since it was the 1970s, it was a product of its time to really get used to how the technology really worked. But hey, things like claymation, stop motion weren't that easy, and they're still not easy to this very day, as it takes a lot of skill and craft, and I felt like they pulled it off pretty well, especially when it came to the musical numbers and the dance numbers. Oh, and speaking of the music, I thought that the music had that charm and liveliness to it, especially when it came to the musical numbers. I especially liked Blue Christmas because, my goodness, it was really touching. It was just one of the most touching songs I've ever listened to throughout this film. And I also liked the two Miser Brothers songs. I thought it was just hilarious. I thought both of them were hilarious. I enjoyed the Snow Miser song, and I also liked the Fire Miser song. Both of them were just extremely hilarious, and I really give props to their voice actors for really giving the best of their characters. And speaking of the characters, they're all very enjoyable. And Mrs. Claus in this movie serves as one of the main protagonists and also the narrator of this film. She basically serves as a very kindly, sweet, and gentle woman, but sometimes you may not always want to get in her way, as she can have moments where she can really prove that she's independent and strong and very willing to take on whatever job she can. And I really like that in any character. She's absolutely willing to make things right, and she's absolutely a fantastic role model, especially to young women out there. And the other characters are quite fantastic as well, especially the two elves. I thought they were just hilarious. And then the little boy Iggy, I found him very charming as well. He's not irritating like a lot of kid characters that we usually see in cartoons or in any other medium. And the Miser brothers are just hilarious as hell. They're just so full of hammy and just great charm from start to finish. And Santa Claus himself, well, he's Santa Claus. He's absolutely fantastic as a character as well. And, well, that's all I can say about them. Every character in this Christmas special definitely had their charm and their likability. And the voice acting is actually really top notch for the time, especially when it came to actors like Shirley Booth and Mickey Rooney, both giving such very memorable portrayals as Mrs. Claus and Santa Claus respectively. So overall, where was I when I was a kid? And why haven't I stumbled upon this when I was a kid? I probably would have enjoyed it a lot when I was a kid. And quite frankly, I really enjoyed this Christmas special. It was simple in its approach, yet it had a lot of charm, color, and a lot of vibrancy. So overall, I'm going to give this film a 4 out of 5 stars. It is well deserved of that score, and even though the animation for the time is dated, it was a product of its time, and I'm sure that over time they got better and better and better, and still, even despite that flaw, everything about it still holds up. Whether it's the characters, the story, the songs, and the overall charm that it has. So, tune in later where I review Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which is yet another Rankin Bass Christmas special that I also caught on YTV, also earlier this morning. So until then, see you later, everybody.